And it's time for Lefties Losing It, and I'm afraid the miserable miscreants of the celebrity world have had a rough couple of days. They have been railing against democracy again and uttering words they do not understand. Here is Jane Fonda.
Our industry is ready to mobilize and to resist autocracy, to resist attacks on our fundamental freedoms. We're artists, we're creatives. Freedom of expression is essential to what we do. Many of our fathers and grandfathers fought wars to defend this right, and we can't just sit back and let this happen. And it's moving fast. This isn't a creeping totalitarianism. This is fast-moving consolidation of autocracy, and that means we have to move fast.
You know what's not moving fast? Jane's face. Go easy with the fillers and the bobo lady. Good Lord, it's becoming difficult to tell her and Madonna apart these days. And of course, any celebrity spouting far-left nonsense is given a platform to spew that on CNN.
He is amassing power in a way that will destroy our democracy. And so we're going to stand up. We want to move forward with love, with unity, with solidarity, and we want to encourage everybody else in all the other sectors of this country to do the same. You know, we don't want to be a pillar of support to this regime that's forming.
You know, these people really do exist in a parallel universe. Do they think the Hollywood mindset is the majority? Do they have no respect for democracy and the fact that Donald Trump is in power because he won an election in a landslide, despite his opponent outspending him by a huge margin? Now to another dim-witted, hopelessly out-of-touch ageing celebrity who seems to think he speaks for the masses. Here is Hollywood has-been, a hysterical Hollywood has-been, claiming that Trump has a dark presence and he has destroyed America. Here is Richard Gere.
That are worried about what's happening in the U.S. Are you worried?
Of course. No, I mean, we have a president who's completely, he's not only crazy, he's a dark, dark presence. And it's happened so quickly. 6 months, he's almost destroyed our country.
Yes, secure borders and a return to manufacturing will destroy America. I guess we shouldn't be surprised because this is the sort of reckless neo-Marxist activism we've come to expect from Richard Gere. Remember this? It's almost an ad for illegal immigration. Watch this.
So the people that you see here on this boat, they're only here because of the donations to Open Arms, work that Open Arms does. Now, the most important thing for these people here is to be able to get to a free port, be able to get off the boats, get on land, and start a new life, be taken care of, and make a life for themselves. So please support us here.
Now to the woman who wanted to be president but failed abysmally despite spending $1.5 billion, outspending Donald Trump by an enormous margin, only to lose. She lost the Electoral College by a big margin, lost every swing state, even lost the popular vote. But somehow Kamala Harris is out there repeating a verifiable lie, claiming that 2024 was the closest presidential election of the century and Donald Trump does not have a mandate. She really is rather mad.
And here's the other thing that is quite unprecedented. And it was the tightest, closest presidential election in the 21st century. He does not have a mandate. That is not a mandate. That is not a mandate.
Incredible. She knows that's a lie and she keeps repeating it because Kamala thinks lefties are too dumb to know any better, or she is genuinely that ignorant herself. Now, I know a lot of you had high hopes for the new Pope after the incessant leftist activism of his predecessor, but I tried to warn you, Pope Leo is cut from the same cloth. At a time when Christians are being persecuted and slaughtered from Africa to Asia to the Middle East, Pope Leo is blessing a block of ice in the name of climate justice. Joining me now is Newsweek's Senior Editor-at-Large and Article 3 Project Senior Counsel Josh Hammer. Josh, what do you make of that performance? Pope Leo engaging in the bizarre antics of blessing blocks of ice, a glacier, in the name of climate justice.
Yeah, it's really quite beyond parody on the one hand, Rita. On the other hand, this is sadly the kind of thing that we expect from many global leaders, including many liberal popes. I mean, it's the kind of thing that we certainly would have expected from Pope Francis. I mean, who was about as left-wing Marxist many as it gets. Unfortunately, I think many of us had higher expectations for Pope Leo. I mean, after all, he's the first American-born pope. He's from Chicago. Maybe he has some good old-fashioned American Midwestern sensibility, but unfortunately, either what we've seen thus far has not exactly been particularly inspiring, has it been? You know, I think the irony is that when you think about biblical religion, Judaism and Christianity, Protestantism, Catholicism, whatever it is here, you know, in a lot of ways, the entire purpose of the introduction of monotheism to the world was to do away with the paganism of old. But really, if you think about it, so-called climate change, the greenie radicalism, the global warming agenda, it's really just refashioned, repackaged paganism, because they're not actually worshiping the God in the heavens, are they? They're actually worshiping the earth, and they have all these weird rituals there, and you get expelled from being a member of good society for sinning, and you have to atone. It has all of the basic elements of a religion. It's kind of just the perverse inversion of the religion. Once upon a time, you would have expected, I don't know, the Pope. I mean, the Pope. You would expect the Pope to actually understand this, right? But unfortunately, that's not what this Pope is, apparently, and that makes me quite sad.
Yeah, the religious zealotry of the Green movement is undeniable, and the way they treat their heretics is pretty clear to see as well. Now, Pope Leo was speaking at a climate conference where he said we must listen to the cry of the earth, but he also passed comment on US domestic politics. He said this, he said, someone who says that I'm against abortion but I'm in agreement with the inhuman treatment of immigrants in the United States, I don't know if that's pro-life. Josh, you're a man of faith. How do you respond to those comments?
Yeah, I'm so sick of all of these ridiculous comments. You can't be pro-life if you don't agree with me on some totally unrelated stance. Rita, a few months ago at the Turning Point USA Student Action Summit in Tampa, I debated Dave Smith, a libertarian provocateur, and he tried this same thing with the audience there. He said, you can't be pro-life and simultaneously support Israel's war against Hamas and Gaza. He actually got booed for saying that at the conference, and that was to the crowd's great credit. So too, I would boo Pope Leo, if I saw him in person there. I would boo him to his face for saying this as well. These things have nothing to do with them. Literally nothing. By the way, I would actually counter, if you want to play this game, this is a very dumb game to play, but if you actually want to play this game, you want to go down the rabbit hole of saying that you're not pro-life, if you don't agree with my stance on immigration, I would challenge the Holy Father as saying the following. Is it pro-life to embolden and encourage the worst international human trafficking rings, the drug cartels, the Sinaloa cartel, El Jalisco, all the various cartels that are taking innocent women and children and young men as well, but often women and children, and gang raping them and using them as mules for coyotes and getting them across the border in horrific, inhumane fashion there? Where is the justice in that? Where is the Genesis 1:27, man and woman alike are made in the image of God? Where is that in that there? So, you know, frankly, Rita, I think it's actually more pro-life to support the nation state, to support borders there, because traditionally speaking, when nations exist in secure borders and crucially they respect each other's sovereignty in each other's borders, that is the recipe for human dignity, which is kind of the quintessential pro-life value.
Josh, sticking with religious leaders playing politics, let's hear from Chicago priest Father Michael Fonda attacking President Trump.
The state of emergency is in America, not Chicago, and is birthed from this president and his administration. Dr. King said he could not raise his voice against the violence of the oppressed without having first spoken clearly to the greater purveyor of violence, his own country. And those are my words to you, Mr. Trump. Before you dare speak about any violence in Chicago, look into your mirror and address the violence coming from the White House.
Josh, the father there is a controversial figure, having faced a number of serious allegations in the past. But what do you make of his intervention in the politics in the US again, with President Trump wanting to enforce law and order measures in Chicago, and he's coming out and saying, no, the violence is actually emanating from the Oval Office.
Well, first of all, I literally don't know what he's talking about. I mean, I'm not playing stupid. Like, I actually do not know what he's talking about. I mean, like, what is the alleged violence that is seeping out via some osmosis process out of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue? I mean, I'm pretty sure that the guy who killed my friend Charlie Kirk was a left-wing fanatic. I'm pretty sure the guy that killed 2 Israeli embassy staffers in Washington, D.C. in May was a left-wing fanatic. And on we go. The political violence in America right now, Rita, is not coming from the Trump White House. It is not coming from the J6ers. It is not coming from conservatives in general. It is coming from the political left. Polling bears this out over and over and over again. We see every poll that shows that left-wingers increasingly say that speech is the same thing as violence, and that therefore, if speech is equated with violence, then the proper response to speech that you don't like is not speech but violence. This is horrific. This is frankly how free societies die. So I literally don't know what he's talking about. He probably should look in a mirror. And I would also say, to kind of go back to the whole religious thing here, again, this is a priest. This is someone who I presume has read the Bible there. Well, he's in Chicago. Well, he should probably be familiar with the book of Jeremiah. Jeremiah chapter 29 famously exhorts individuals and says you should focus on the welfare of your own city, because there in your own city you shall find peace and you shall seek welfare. It's kind of a federalist kind of exhortation, if you will. It is urging people to focus on your locality, on your own city there. Well, this guy should be less focused on Washington, D.C. and less focused on his alleged issues with the White House and focus a little more on his own backyard. I went to law school in Chicago. I lived there for 3 years. Let me tell you, Southside Chicago is a war zone. It is a veritable war zone. It is horrifically dangerous. I have not been back to that city in 3.5 years. I'm not sure, frankly, when the next time I will go back is. It's an absolute catastrophe. And if this guy wants to talk about violence, well, I would encourage him to get out of whatever kind of Tony upscale suburb he probably lives in, go to Southside Chicago and then report back to us.
Chicago, you look at the crime rate there, Josh, it is just appalling. Every weekend there seems to be a spate of mass shootings, gang violence, innocent people being caught up. And for a priest to be grandstanding on an anti-Trump agenda, it just seems like he likes the cameras there a little bit too much. Now, we featured earlier in the program in Lefties celebrities losing their teeny tiny minds, from Richard Gere to Ariana Grande to something called Bad Bunny. Hollywood is not relenting one bit. They're happy to ignore or even condemn more than half the country. There's a real disconnect between the celebrity media class and reality. How sustainable is that, Josh?
Well, it's not sustainable. I mean, at some point, there's going to have to be a market correction, right? I mean, this is how market forces work, is that when there are a lot of people demanding something and there's not supply, then naturally there's going to be some suppliers there. Now, there have been some folks, Rita, I think you and I are both big country music fans. You know, there have been some country music stars, for instance, who have kind of gone out of their way to try to console Erica Kirk, the widow of Charlie Kirk, Jason Aldean, Morgan Wallen, among others there. So there's something of a counterculture in the music space, at least. There's something of counterculture developing there. Certainly the NFL has very much put its foot in its mouth, the National Football League, in deciding that Bad Bunny is going to be the Super Bowl halftime show next year. Now, for what it's worth, I actually was pleasantly surprised by Bad Bunny's cameo performance in Happy Gilmore 2 when he was Adam Sandler's caddy. I thought that was kind of an enjoyable role for him there, but I don't like it when Bad Bunny opens his mouth about politics, because he's typically preaching a vehemently anti-ICE, pro-anarchy, anti-law enforcement, anti-nation state, frankly, in many ways, just anti-Western civilization message. So if the National Football League, which is by far America's most popular sport, if they're trying to find a unifying cultural figure, which is probably a good idea in a moment like the Super Bowl, the most watched event in America, if not the whole world there, you probably want to find someone who's not going to alienate and tick off, frankly, half the country there. He's not a very good choice for that, is he there? So a massive unforced error by the National Football League. But, you know, this is a sporting league that still has end racism emblazoned in the end zones as a throwback to George Floyd, our dearly departed martyr from the summer of 2020. So they haven't really learned a whole lot of lessons, have they?
No, they are slow learners, and not only picking this activist, but it's an activist who's not exactly a household name. I don't think most football fans are going to be overly familiar with Bad Bunny's music. So, it's supposed to be an honour that goes to the cream of the crop, the very best musicians in the industry. And this one is definitely a strange choice. Now, we were talking about political violence before. Virginia's Democratic nominee for Attorney General, Jay Jones, is being backed by key Democrats despite his horrific text messages being exposed, where he said just shocking things, Josh, including hoping former Republican House Speaker Todd Gilbert's children would die. And he also said that such grief might be a good thing if it advanced his politics. This is just when you think you can't be shocked anymore, you're shocked.
I think, Rita, that a lot of folks on the left, when we on the right, when we say that some folks on the left actually want us dead, like they literally want to kill us, a lot of them say, "Oh my God, what are you talking about? I mean, what kind of monsters do you think we are there?" Well, this is who we think you are. I mean, this is literally who we think you are.
Yeah.
Is that people who have Freudian slips, or maybe it's not even a Freudian slip, actually. Maybe they're just saying it out in the open for the simple reason that they happen to believe it, that they actually want their political opponents to be dead. I mean, this is the natural consequence of a worldview that has no room, to kind of get back to our earlier conversation, for a biblical, godly worldview that has no room for the Genesis 1:27 notion that we are all human beings made in the image of God, that we all have human dignity and self-worth, that we're entitled to have differences of opinions when it comes to taxation policy or social credits or this or that there. That doesn't mean that we deserve to die for our political views there. But when you forsake God and the transcendental, and when you also, again, equate speech with violence, you're going to get to a very, very, very unhealthy place there. This guy really, really, really should get out of the race. I think the most appalling thing, Rita, as you alluded to, is that I can't identify a single big name Democratic figure who has encouraged him to do so yet. That is really, really troubling. Surely there is
Yeah.
at least one senior elder statesman in the Democratic Party who can look at this soberly and say, that's not what we're about there. But thus far, Rita, that person has not yet arisen.
Well, Virginia's Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears had this to say about Jay Jones and the Democrats' hateful, violent rhetoric.
The calls for hate and violence are coming from the mouths of the Democrat Party's leaders. And Jay Jones is just the most recent, and his wish for violent acts the most clear. So if you can't solve a problem, you can't name it, but I will. And here and now, the leadership of the Democrat Party has become consumed with hate.
And Winsome Sears also called out the Democrat leadership, who are also guilty of inciting violence.
Try to name a Democrat leader who hasn't called the president Hitler. Try to name one who hasn't said Republicans and our policies are an existential threat to democracy. No, I am not saying Democrat leaders are committing violence, although Jay Jones fantasizes about murdering Republican children.
Josh, we really haven't seen a change in tone from the left after the assassination attempts against Donald Trump, and even after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. They have continued with this rhetoric, labelling their political opponents fascists, threats to democracies, modern-day Hitlers, knowing that their supporter base, certainly segments of it, are prone to acts of violence.
Correct. And I think back to Pennsylvania. I think back to the Butler, Pennsylvania, July 2024, when Donald Trump moves his head a millimeter one direction and miraculously escapes an assassin's bullets by literally millimeters there. And that in theory would have been the moment for the left to look in the mirror and to call out their own shock troops, their grassroots thugs, the Antifa street thug wing of the movement of the party, and say, this is enough. Enough is enough already there. We are going to compete with Republicans. We're going to compete with Trump, compete with MAGA at the ballot box when it comes to the battle of ideas, in the battle of written op-eds and videos, whatever there. But we're not going to get involved when it comes to knives and swords and rifles and bullets there. That would have been the moment there. They didn't do that. They literally did not do that. So I'm not the least bit surprised that they have not done that in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's horrific death, because they've already shown that they have no interest in doing so. More generally, Rita, I think back to the 2024 election, just a few months after Donald Trump miraculously survived, well, I guess both of the attempted assassinations, but especially the one in Butler, Pennsylvania there. And Democrats, of course, lost all 7 swing states. They lost all the Sun Belt swing states, all 4 of them, all 3 of the Rust Belt swing states there. Now, here we are coming up on 1 year after the November 2024 general election there. Just as they have not changed their tune at all when it comes to political violence, have they learned a single substantive lesson when it comes to public policy? Have they actually changed their stance on a single issue of the various culture war issues that they lost so badly at the ballot box on last November, when it comes to open borders and immigration, when it comes to transgenderism, when it comes to crime, when it comes to Antifa, ICE? Far from it. Look at Portland, Oregon right now. The Portland police is literally not protecting federal facilities from anti-ICE anarchic protesters there. It's insane. They have learned absolutely nothing whatsoever. And unless and until they do so, at best, they're going to keep on losing election after election. At worst, they're going to get more people killed.
Josh Hammer, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Rita.
Now, let's have a look at Meghan Markle being weird and inauthentic. Here she is swanning around like she's Queen Cersei in Game of Thrones. And let's have a look at this rather awkward encounter with Pier Paolo Piccioli. He's the creative director of Balenciaga.
Would you mind taking my picture? Thank you.
Oh, yes, that was awkward. Let's have another look at it. Let's bring in celebrity and royal commentator Kinsey Schofield. Kinsey, Meghan Markle has come under fire for attending the Balenciaga fashion show after the brand sustained enormous reputational damage for producing disturbing ads featuring children. What do you make of this whole saga?
I mean, yeah, the children were posed with teddy bears dressed in bondage-style gear. It was predatory. And Meghan Markle is accepting an award as Humanitarian of the Year on Thursday for protecting children online. She shouldn't be promoting a brand accused of predatory behavior. How are you protecting children when you are promoting a brand that was accused of inappropriate behavior towards them? And it wasn't just the teddy bear ad. There was their spring 2023 campaign included props referencing a U.S. Supreme Court case on images of minors, along with disturbing artwork and books. So I think, to promote this brand that combines children with adult themes, who is guiding this woman? Who is working with this woman? Because you certainly wouldn't see the Princess of Wales engaging with any company accused of such behavior.
No, and just a simple Google search would have told her just how controversial and divisive this brand is. Even people who are very fashion forward were disturbed by that ad campaign and precisely what they were trying to communicate with those images. Now, the Duchess of Sussex is also facing a backlash for posting a video of herself riding in a limo with her feet up near the Parisian tunnel where Princess Diana died. Kinsey, is that criticism a little bit unfair?
Well, look, this is the same woman that tells us she's Diana 2.0. Shouldn't she be aware of something like this? Also, this is the same town that her mother-in-law passed away in. Prince Harry says it was due to paparazzi, and Meghan's literally chasing these flashbulbs throughout the city. And then, she's 1 mile away in that video from where Princess Diana, had her last breath, lost her life. I think it is insensitive. And I think she tries to sell us on the fact that she, is so compassionate, so empathetic. She takes the everyday things and makes them special because it puts that much more thought into it. Well, how about having some thought towards your husband's feelings when you're in the same city his mom died in, running around, having a joyride in Paris near where she lost her life? If she didn't try to paint herself as Diana 2.0, I would say, like, you guys, this is a stretch.
Yeah.
But she's constantly telling us that she's the new Diana.
Kinsey, I think you may be right. Meghan Markle is going to love this week. All eyes will be on her. She had the weird white outfit. She had the sexy black backless outfit. And I think she's enjoying the attention. Now, let's talk about Nicole Kidman. She's made her first public appearance since filing for divorce from Keith Urban, presenting Taylor Sheridan, the executive producer of Kidman's new TV series, Lioness, with the Award of Inspiration. This was at a benefit in Dallas, which was raising money for AIDS research. Kinsey, she made a point during that speech about the importance of looking out for each other.
All I can say is, like, she's coming out of this situation looking very clean. Right? I mean, Nicole Kidman, she continues to show remarkable courage and resilience, even in the face of another divorce, a high-profile divorce. I think the audience recognizes her tireless work ethic and the dedication she has to her craft. She's not only thriving professionally, but proving that she has the strength and talent to navigate these types of personal challenges. And meanwhile, you're seeing these rumors circulating online. I'm seeing these rumors circulating online. A lot of negative reaction to Keith Urban. And, you know, I think she's going to come out on top here.
Well, yes, I think she came out clean out of the Tom Cruise divorce as well. The sympathy was with her. And if Keith has already moved on with a new woman, then yes, of course, Nicole's going to win the sympathy there. Now, it seems the rumoured romance between Katy Perry and Justin Trudeau is getting serious. We're now hearing details of late-night phone calls and flirty text messages, with a source close to Katy Perry revealing that Katy is very, very interested in him. She says he's a real catch, a high-quality guy. Does that sound like a genuine source to you, Kinsey?
Is it opposite day? Is it opposite day? Who are you guys talking to over the Daily Mail? They said that they chat about their kids, their day-to-day lives, and hope to spend more time together once her tour schedule eases up. The same insider said that Katy Perry really does like him a lot, and that their connection remains strong. I mean, what these two must talk about. For the love of God, I'm curious. But, you know, some might say that their relationship is out of this world because she's an astronaut. So we'll have to wait and see when they finally come out.
Yes, I forgot that she's an astronaut. That was a fun little period, wasn't it? Now, she changed the world. Jane Fonda has revived the Committee for the First Amendment, a Cold War-era activist group founded by her father Henry and other Hollywood legends when they were allegedly being silenced by McCarthy. These clowns have paranoid delusions, Kinsey, about being targeted by Trump. Hollywood is completely controlled by the left, so much so that any dissenting voice pays a very heavy price indeed. And really, that's the real McCarthyism, isn't it?
Amen. I mean, what I would love to stress is celebrities and Hollywood do not care about the First Amendment for normies. They only care when it affects one of their own. This campaign is so disingenuous. If this would have happened after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, I would have been like, wow, thank you. Somebody was shot in the throat because someone else didn't like what they were saying, and they took away their opportunity to speak. But Jimmy Kimmel was put in timeout, guys, for just a couple of days. You know, I doubt he missed a meal. So you just look at this and go, get a life, Jane Fonda.
And he was put out because he said something that was a lie and refused to apologise, was going to double down. And it was a private company making that decision. And so this victim playing is just out of hand. Now, we've got to just do a little bit of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. Let's have a look at the NFL star arriving at Arrowhead Stadium for a recent game, looking like an utter cringe clown.
Love the tan line, man. You golf?
Oh dear. Kinsey, Taylor Swift's 12th studio album, The Life of a Showgirl, is getting panned online. This is very unusual. Even some Swifties have called it her worst album. You're a fan. What do you think?
I don't think it's her best. It's not my favorite, but you've said it a million times. Like, we love when Taylor's mad. We love when Taylor's bitter. And that's not the place she's at in her life right now. We need a breakup album is what I'm trying to say. Sorry. But you've seen the shorts.
Oh, we can't have that. She's just got engaged. We may have to just wait 5 to 7 years for this marriage to play out, and then we'll get the killer album. Kinsey Schofield, thanks so much for your